Has that been a big strength so far in your mind?
Well, critical with the injuries that we had on the blue line, and you know they're not running the whole year healthy up front, so you make hay when the sun shines. Some identities, I think, each line looks a little bit different. They have a different style of play. Pretty happy with where they're at. We've got to get, I wouldn't say necessarily more offense, a little more finish we'd like, but I'm not going to complain about that because the generation of chances is there.
It seems like every game in the third period has been close. Just when you want to play that playoff style of hockey, how much does it help to have every game and every third period be important?
We want them to, I mean, this is a learned skill. You're not going to shut every game down, but you want to have a template, and certainly we talk about it going from second to third period, a style and a look of game. So I think we made, I would say we had more risk in our game in maybe the first 2 or 3 leads that we had, and then not a whole lot. From the second period on, even strength. We didn't really give up very much in the last game, so positive there.
I want to ask you about Eetu Luostarinen, and obviously a jump this year from center to wing. Different responsibilities, but obviously the production's been there. Just how impressed have you been with how he's done that transition so quickly?
Well, I'd include both of the young players, Lundell as well. So they both have a skill level. They both can play the game for sure. But developing a forechecking style is really important for young players. It's not something that they really, most kids when they come in the draft, they're all possession guys, right? That's a puck on the stick, make plays. Then they put up numbers, and that's how they get to the National League. But a big chunk of this game is forechecking, and not in the necessarily old school, you got to run them through the boards kind of forechecking. Can you get it stopped? And can you create off the forecheck? And you look at all the goals that line have scored, they all have been from that style of hockey. So I think what I'm excited about is I think it's an addition to their game. I think it's a place that they can now find other ways to create offense, really important.
They both said that Colin White's kind of lagging behind in terms of his finish. Can the team give him a tutor or anything like that?
No, it's interesting. He's learned to speak their language in terms of how they play, though, because he's found an interesting role there. He's almost plays off them a little bit. But they all do a good job of kind of recovering to the slot in the offensive zone. So he gets to stick on an awful lot of pucks, right? So he's about +6. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you understand chemistry and sometimes you really don't. It's just smart guys finding holes, right? Reading off each other. And I think those 3 guys, the more that Lundell and Luostarinen can get in and get pucks stopped in the forecheck, the more effective that line will be.
We were talking yesterday about that fourth line and how they're so aggressive on the forecheck.
Yeah.
And Nick Cousins has been one of the underrated parts of that line. I mean, what are your impressions on him through the first 6 games?
Yeah, you know what? We'd go back through training camp and he had the injury and we missed him, right? Like we didn't, that's not the right word. What I mean is I didn't have a beat on him. And then he's kind of come in. Both those wingers are so tenacious on the forecheck, and they can get pucks stopped and they can create loose pucks. It takes a guy a while to figure that out, where to be when they need help and when they don't. And I think he's starting to pick that up a little bit. Completely different style of hockey that we play here than I think he's used to, in terms of pucks going north always and not a lot of regrouping in our game. And he's picking up on that as well. So we feel. The 3 players that we brought in from the outside, there was a little bit of a learning curve, but they're all trending in the same direction.
Is there any concern with your first line guys that they haven't gotten her going, or is it just they'll get there?
Yeah, so I don't think I'll throw the concern on it. We're patiently waiting, but I love analytics too. I look at that stuff, right? They were almost +7 in ozone time. They were +6 in chances, and we're tight on those chances. So those are freakish numbers. But the puck's not going into the back of the net. So it as long as it doesn't change their game too much, and it's just on the cusp of, for me, just on the cusp of their game changing in terms of overpassing it to a fault, because they have to be allowed to make plays. You can't say you've got to shoot everything. They've got to be allowed to make plays. They're too skilled not to. But there is a line there. I still think that I would come back to it. I wouldn't dismiss it as a line that can't play together. So even if it doesn't go, I'll watch it. How the overall team is playing trumps that. So I haven't made a change in the line because I like what we're doing on the other lines. But I could flip a couple. I've got a couple of places where we're going to go with that if it stays as it is, because we do need production out of them. But it might be a line that you revisit later in the year that you come back to once everybody kind of gets that confidence in that rhythm. They've been so close on so many. Sometimes you'd consider breaking up a line, not because you wouldn't say it's not working, it's just they need a break from it, and then we'll come back to it a little later when their perspectives are different.
Reinhardt kind of said that. He's like, I'm trying to get Barkey going. He's trying to get me going. Maybe we're pushing it a little too much.
For sure. They have to trust that when they see a wide open play, they're going to make it, right? And then everything after that is just basic hockey, pucks to the net, scrums, chaos that you cause off it. I do think they force some things for sure. And into the middle of the ice at times, overpassed it at times. But at the end of it, a big bulk of it is just not converting. It's just coming off their stick and it's just not hitting the back of the net. So be a little bit more patient right now with that line.
Coach, more big picture, you mentioned before the start of the season the importance of adding defense without subtracting from the offense. Do you feel like you've struck a good balance so far?
Very pleased with it. So we measure all of those things, chances off the rush. I'm also mindful of when you look at the teams that we've played, and you would say if you had based it on last year, that there are not a lot of playoff teams in it, but Buffalo is now, Philadelphia is now. I think the style of game the Islanders played make them a hard game no matter where they are. They've been in the conference finals twice in the last 3 years, basically with the same people and basically playing the exact same games. Those are hard games to play. They do a very good job of eliminating your rush game, which have felt possibly in the past would almost be the death knell of the game. If they took away the rush game here, then we couldn't win. Our offensive zone game and our forecheck game is very strong. It's our strength right now. The rush game will be there, and then it won't be, because when you get to the playoffs, the rush game disappears.
Cool.
Rich, I'm sorry, any chance for 12 to get in tomorrow or Thursday?
Road trip's a possibility. Yeah.
Paul, just general thoughts on this road trip. First time in Chicago and a quick rematch against the Flyers.
Well, they're 3 in a row, and they've come back, I think maybe in even all 3 of them, but very, very dangerous in speed and skill. So you're going to see a completely different style of hockey game. Our challenge is to make sure our game doesn't shift too much because of that style. So, and then we'll get into a very physical game in Philadelphia. So we're seeing, what I've enjoyed when you get a new team is kind of presenting the other teams in the style of games that they play, and seeing that your players understand it is going to look different, but we're still playing the same game. It just looks different because of the way that, and being able to understand that, what it'll do is take a lot of frustration out of your game. So the Islanders game can be potentially a very frustrating game. It's hard to break something loose, so you got to grind it. And if you don't want to do that, you just lose. So we're going to get 3 different, from the Islanders to Chicago into Philadelphia, we're going to get 3 different looks here, and I'm interested to see how we handle it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.